The wheels of the C-17 touched down on the tarmac at Fort Bragg, and I felt my heart racing in a way it had not in 9 months. I was finally home. The North Carolina sun broke through the October clouds as I stepped off that plane, breathing in air that smelled like freedom, like America, like everything I had been fighting for overseas. All I could think about was Sarah, my wife, the woman I married 4 years ago in that little chapel back in Virginia. I pictured her smile the way she used to wait for me at the door, but something felt different. Those last few video calls, she seemed distant. Her eyes looked somewhere else. I pushed the thought away. Distance does that to people, right? I told myself I was overthinking. I had no idea that in 72 hours, my entire world would shatter in a way I never imagined possible. Before I tell you what happened when I walked through that door, I need to know I am not alone in this. Drop a comment telling me where you are watching from, and if you have ever felt that gut feeling that something was wrong, but hoped you were just overthinking it. Hit that like button and subscribe, because what I am about to share will take you through the darkest moment of my life and the decision that changed everything. Trust me, you will want to hear how this ends. The drive from base to our rental house in Fayetteville felt longer than it should have. My duffel bag sat in the passenger seat, and my mind kept replaying every phone call, every text message from the past few months. Sarah had been short with me. When I asked about her day at the hospital where she worked as a nurse, she gave one-word answers. When I told her I loved her, she said it back, but it sounded hollow. I convinced myself deployment stress affects everyone. She was alone. I was gone. We would fix this. I pulled into the driveway. The lawn needed mowing. Mail was piled up on the porch. The house looked tired. I grabbed my bag and walked to the front door, my hand shaking as I turned the key. The door opened before I could. Sarah stood there. Her face went pale when she saw me. No smile, no tears of joy, just shock, like she had seen a ghost. I dropped my bag and reached for her. The hug felt wrong. Her body stiffened. She pulled back almost immediately, her hands barely touching my shoulders. I tried to laugh it off, tried to kiss her, but she turned her face so my lips landed on her cheek. "I missed you," I said. My voice cracked a little. "I missed you too," she whispered, but her eyes would not meet mine. We walked inside. The house smelled different. Not bad, just unfamiliar, like someone else had been living there. I looked around. Everything seemed normal at first. Same couch, same pictures on the wall, same kitchen table. But then I noticed small things. A pair of men's sneakers by the back door, size 12, maybe 13, way bigger than my size 10. I stared at them. "Whose shoes are those?" I asked. Sarah froze. "Oh, those are Kyle's. He came by a few times to help fix some stuff around the house. The sink was leaking. He helped me out." Kyle, my younger brother, 24 years old, still figuring life out, working as a mechanic, always asking to borrow money. I felt a small knot in my stomach, but I pushed it down. He was helping. That was good, right? That is what brothers do. I opened the fridge to grab a beer. There were 6 bottles of a brand I never drank. Sarah did not drink beer at all. "Kyle left those too?" I asked, trying to keep my tone light. "Yeah, he forgets stuff." Her voice was tight, nervous. That night, I tried to reconnect with my wife. I reached for her in bed. She pulled away, said she was exhausted. I lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. Something was very wrong. The next morning, I decided to clean up around the house. Sarah had already left for her shift at the hospital. I vacuumed, did laundry, sorted through mail. Then I went into our bedroom to organize the dresser. That is when I found it. Tucked into the back of her nightstand drawer, A small bag from an ultrasound clinic. My hands trembled as I pulled it out. Inside was a sonogram image, black and white, tiny shape, measurements printed at the bottom. 12 weeks. My heart stopped. 12 weeks? 3 months? I stood there staring at that image, my brain trying to process. I wanted to feel joy. I wanted to believe this was ours. But the math did not work. I had been gone for 9 months. 9 months. If Sarah was 12 weeks pregnant, that meant she got pregnant 6 months after I left. I heard the front door open. Sarah was home early. I walked out of the bedroom holding the sonogram. She saw it in my hand and her face crumbled. She started crying immediately, backing against the wall. Eric, I can explain. Explain what? My voice was shaken. You are pregnant. Yes. How far along? 3 months. She could barely get the words out. I felt like the floor was falling away. Sarah, I have been gone for 9 months. She slid down the wall, sobbing into her hands. I stood there frozen. I wanted her to say something that made sense. I wanted her to tell me the dates were wrong. But she did not. Who? I asked. My voice was barely a whisper. She shook her head, crying harder. Tell me who? I was begging now. She looked up at me, tears streaming down her face. Her lips trembled. It is Kyle, she said. It is your brother? The room went silent. I could not hear anything. Not her crying, not the traffic outside, nothing, just a ringing in my ears. My wife, my brother. I turned and walked out of the house. I did not say another word. I do not remember the drive to Kyle's apartment. I just remember my hands gripping the steering wheel so hard, my knuckles turned white. He lived on the other side of town in a rundown complex with a parking lot full of potholes. I parked and sat there for a minute, trying to breathe. Then I got out and walked up to his door. Second floor, Unit 212. I knocked, hard, 3 times. Kyle opened the door. He was in a tank top and jeans, a sandwich in his hand. When he saw me, his expression did not change. No guilt, no fear, just mild surprise. Eric, you are back. Did you sleep with my wife? I asked. No greeting, no small talk, just that. He stared at me for a second. Then he nodded. Yeah, I did. I felt my fist clench. I wanted to hit him. I wanted to break something, but I just stood there. Why? I asked. He shrugged. Actually shrugged. It just happened, man. We were both lonely. Lonely? I repeated the word like it was foreign. You were lonely, so you slept with my wife. She needed someone. He took a bite of his sandwich. You were never around Eric, always off playing soldier. She was alone. I was there. I stepped closer. So this is my fault. I am not saying that. He held up his hands, but there was no remorse in his face. I am just saying maybe if you had been here, it would not have happened. I could not believe what I was hearing. My own brother was blaming me for his betrayal. I turned and walked away before I did something I would regret. As I got to the stairs, he called out, "She is keeping the baby, by the way. You might want to deal with that." I left. I got in my car and just sat there shaking. My brother, the person I grew up with, the person I protected, he had betrayed me and acted like I deserved it. That evening, my phone rang. It was my mom, Linda. Sarah had already called her. I answered. Eric, honey, we need to talk. Come to the house tonight. Your father and I want to see you. I drove to my parents' house in rural Virginia. It took an hour. The whole way I kept replaying Kyle's words. Maybe if you had been here. Like my service to my country was the problem. Like I was the villain. When I walked in, both my parents were sitting in the living room. My dad, Robert, looked stern. My mom had been crying. And Kyle was there, sitting on the couch like nothing was wrong. I stood by the door. What is this? My mom stood up. Eric, sit down. We need to talk about this as a family. A family? I laughed, but there was no humor in it. Is that what we are? My dad pointed to the chair. Sit. I sat, but I did not relax. My mom started. Kyle told us what happened, and Sarah called me. This is a very difficult situation. Difficult? I stared at her. Mom, he slept with my wife. She is pregnant with his child. What is there to talk about? My dad leaned forward. Kyle made a mistake, but he is still your brother. Family forgives. I could not believe what I was hearing. Forgives you want me to forgive him? My mom wiped her eyes. Sarah is carrying your brother's child. That baby is still family, Eric. You need to think about what is right. What is right? I stood up. What is right is that they both betrayed me, and now you want me to just pretend it did not happen. My dad's voice got louder. Kyle is young. He made a bad choice. But you are the older brother. You are supposed to be the mature one. You are supposed to put family first. I looked at Kyle. He was sitting there, arms crossed, looking annoyed. Not sorry, annoyed. Like this whole thing was an inconvenience for him. My mom kept talking. We think you should consider staying with Sarah, raising the baby as your own, for the sake of keeping this family together. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach. You want me to raise his child? It is a family child, my dad said. We do not abandon family. I looked at each of them, my mom, my dad, Kyle. They were serious. They actually expected me to swallow my pain, my humiliation, my anger, and pretend everything was fine. The next weekend, they called a full family meeting. My older sister Susan came with her husband David and their 2 kids. We all sat around the same living room. Susan already knew. She sided with my parents. Eric, I know this hurts, Susan said, her voice gentle but firm. But divorce will tear this family apart. Think about mom and dad. Think about the kids. They do not need to see their uncle and their other uncle fighting. I stared at her. So I should just accept it. Be the bigger person. Yes, she said simply. That is what family does. Kyle, who had been silent, finally spoke up. Look, I am sorry it went down like this, but maybe Sarah needed someone who was actually there for her. That was it. That was the moment. I stood up. You all expect me to forgive him? To raise his child? Are you hearing yourselves? My dad stood too. You are being selfish. This is about family unity. My mom started crying again. If you leave Sarah, if you cut Kyle off, you are destroying this family. Everyone went quiet. They were all looking at me, waiting. The pressure in that room was suffocating. They were blaming me. Not Kyle, not Sarah, me. Kyle smirked a little. Maybe Sarah needed someone who was actually there for her, he said again, like he wanted to see me break. I looked at each of them one more time. My parents, my sister, my brother. Then I spoke. If this is what family means to you all, then I want no part of it. I walked out. I heard my mom crying behind me. I heard my dad yelling my name. But I did not stop. I got in my car and drove away, leaving them all sitting there in stunned silence. On the drive back, I pulled over on the side of the road. I sat there in the dark, hands on the wheel, and let myself feel everything. The betrayal, the anger, the loneliness. I had just lost my wife, my brother, and my parents all in 1 week. But for the first time since I came home, I felt something else. Clarity. I knew what I had to do. The next morning, I went back to base and requested to speak with the family counselor. She listened to my story without interruption. When I finished, she handed me a card. You need a lawyer, she said. This is not something you should handle alone. I called my buddy Marcus. We served together overseas. He was one of the few people I trusted completely. When I told him everything, he was furious on my behalf. "Man, they are insane. You need to get away from all of them," he said. Then he gave me a name, James Harrington, a lawyer who specialized in military divorce cases. I met with James 2 days later. His office was small but professional. He was in his 50s, gray hair, sharp eyes. I sat down and told him everything. He took notes, asked questions, and did not judge. When I finished, he leaned back in his chair. "Eric, you have every right to file for divorce. North Carolina is a no-fault state, but adultery can still impact things like alimony. You are not responsible for a child that is not biologically yours. We can file immediately." "What do I need to do?" I asked. "First, we need evidence, text messages, witnesses, anything that proves the affair. Second, we file the petition. Third, we request a paternity test once the child is born to confirm it is not yours. After that, we move forward with the separation of assets." I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. Someone was finally on my side. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything I could. I pulled phone records from our shared plan. There were hundreds of texts between Sarah and Kyle during my deployment. Late-night calls, long conversations. I saved it all. I also wrote a statement detailing what Sarah and Kyle had admitted to me. James filed the divorce papers. Sarah was served at the hospital. She did not fight it. She signed the acknowledgement of receipt and sent it back through her own lawyer. She knew she had no ground to stand on. Kyle called me after he found out. He was angry. "You are really going to abandon her while she is pregnant," he yelled through the phone. "You are heartless, Eric." I did not respond. I just hung up and blocked his number. My parents called next. My mom was hysterical. "Eric, please, please reconsider. You are making a huge mistake." "No, Mom," I said calmly. "I am protecting myself. Something you should have done for me." My dad got on the line. "If you go through with this, do not expect anything from us. You are out of the will." I laughed. Actually laughed. "You can keep your money and your version of family." I hung up. Then I blocked their numbers too. But I was not done. I made a decision that I knew would shock everyone. I was not going to stay silent. The military community is small. Rumors spread fast. I wanted people to hear the truth from me, not from gossip. I sat down one night and wrote a long post on Facebook. I did not name Sarah or Kyle directly, but I told my story. I explained that I had returned from deployment to find my wife pregnant with my brother's child. I explained that my family had demanded I forgive them and raise the child as my own. I explained that I had chosen to walk away. I ended the post with this: "I am sharing this because I refuse to be silent about my pain. I am not the villain here. I chose self-respect. I chose freedom, and I will start over." I hit post. Within hours, it went viral in the military community. Hundreds of comments poured in. People I had not spoken to in years reached out to offer support. People in Fayetteville who knew Sarah and Kyle saw the post. Friends of my parents saw it. My sister saw it. Sarah's co-workers at the hospital found out. Some of them distanced themselves from her. She eventually had to transfer to a different hospital because the environment became too uncomfortable. Kyle lost clients at the garage where he worked. People did not want to do business with someone they saw as disloyal. My parents were approached by people at church asking questions. They tried to defend Kyle and Sarah, but no one agreed with them. Susan called me furious. "You made our family look terrible. Everyone is talking about us." "I did not betray anyone," I said. "I just refused to be silent about my pain." She hung up on me. 3 months later, Sarah gave birth, a baby boy. The paternity test confirmed what we all knew. Kyle was the father. His name went on the birth certificate. Now he was legally responsible. But Kyle was not ready to be a father. He barely visited. He did not help with expenses. Sarah was on her own. She tried to make it work with Kyle. They moved in together for about 3 months. But it did not last. They fought constantly. He resented the responsibility. She resented that he was not the man she thought he was. They split up. Sarah moved into a small apartment and worked double shifts to support their son. Kyle went back to his old life, avoiding responsibility whenever he could. My parents ended up helping Sarah financially because Kyle would not. They were supporting both their son and the woman he got pregnant. The consequences of their choices were finally hitting them. A year after I left, my mom called from a number I did not have blocked. I almost did not answer, but I did. "Eric," she said quietly, "I am sorry. I was wrong. We were wrong." I did not say anything. Kyle is not the person we thought he was. And Sarah, she is struggling. We have been helping her because he will not. I see now what we asked you to do. It was unfair. It was cruel. I took a deep breath. "Thank you for saying that, Mom." "Can you forgive us?" she asked, her voice breaking. "I do not know yet," I said honestly, "but I appreciate the apology." We talked a little longer. I did not promise anything, but I did not hang up angry. It was a start. Maybe one day I would fully reconcile with them, but I was not there yet. And that was okay. 2 years have passed since I came home to that nightmare. I am not going to lie and say it was easy. The first 6 months were brutal. I went through anger, sadness, loneliness, and everything in between. But I also went through growth. I threw myself into my career. I worked hard, took on extra responsibilities, and earned a promotion. The Army transferred me to a base in Texas. A fresh start, new faces, new opportunities. I left North Carolina and everything it represented behind. I also started going to therapy. The VA connected me with a counselor who specialized in working with veterans dealing with trauma and betrayal. It helped more than I ever thought it would. I learned that what happened to me was not my fault. I learned that setting boundaries, even with family, is not selfish. It is survival. I joined a support group for veterans going through difficult transitions. I met people who had been through worse than me. People who lost limbs, people who lost friends, people who came home to find their entire lives had fallen apart. We supported each other. We became a new kind of family, the kind that shows up, the kind that does not ask you to betray yourself for their comfort. I started running, then I started lifting weights. Physical fitness became my therapy. I ran a marathon, then another. I got a dog from a rescue shelter, a German Shepherd mix named Ranger. He goes everywhere with me. He does not judge. He does not betray. He just loves. Marcus, my buddy from deployment, stayed in close contact. We talked every week. When I moved to Texas, he helped me find an apartment. He introduced me to his friends. He made sure I was not alone. He became the brother Kyle never was. I learned something important through all of this. Family is not just about blood. Family is about loyalty, respect, love that does not come with conditions. The people who stood by me, who did not ask me to sacrifice my dignity, those are my family now. I also learned that forgiveness does not mean reconciliation. I have forgiven Sarah. I have forgiven Kyle. Not because they deserve it, but because holding on to that anger was hurting me more than it was hurting them. Forgiveness for me meant letting go of the bitterness. It did not mean letting them back into my life. My parents and I talk occasionally now. Holidays, birthdays, short phone calls. It is civil, it is polite, but it is not what it used to be. Maybe one day it will be, maybe it will not. I have made peace with either outcome. Susan reached out last Christmas. She apologized. She said she did not understand the depth of what I went through until she saw how Kyle treated Sarah and the baby. She saw his selfishness. She saw his refusal to take responsibility. She finally understood why I walked away. We are rebuilding slowly. I appreciate her effort. As for Kyle and Sarah, I do not keep up with them. I heard through my mom that they are both still struggling. Sarah is working hard to raise her son. Kyle is still avoiding responsibility. I feel sorry for that little boy. He did not ask for any of this, but he is not my responsibility. That is a hard truth, but it is the truth. I do not regret my decision, not for a second. I shocked everyone when I walked away. I shocked them even more when I refused to stay silent. But I saved myself. And that is what mattered most. I chose my peace over their comfort. I chose my self-respect over their version of family unity. And I would make the same choice again. If you are in a situation like mine, if someone is asking you to accept disrespect, to forgive betrayal without accountability, to sacrifice your dignity for the sake of keeping the peace, I want you to hear this. You do not owe anyone your peace, not your parents, not your siblings, not even your spouse. You have the right to walk away from people who refuse to respect you. You have the right to start over. You have the right to choose yourself. Forgiveness does not mean you have to keep someone in your life. Sometimes the greatest act of love is walking away from people who refuse to see your worth. That does not make you cold. That does not make you unforgiving. That makes you wise. So to everyone watching, I want to ask you this. Have you ever been in a situation where your family or loved ones asked you to accept something unacceptable? Have you ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your self-respect? Drop a comment and tell me your story. I read every single one, and I want you to know you are not alone. If this story helped you in any way, hit that like button. Subscribe to this channel because I share real stories about real struggles, and we are building a community of people who refuse to settle for less than they deserve. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is struggling to set boundaries, someone who feels guilty for choosing themselves. Thank you for listening to my story. Thank you for being here. I hope you walk away from this video knowing that you are worth fighting for. You are worth protecting. And you deserve people in your life who see that. Take care of yourself. You deserve peace.